The clatter of plates and the murmur of polite conversation were the usual soundtrack to my evenings at the Golden Spoon. It was one of those fancy places, all crisp white tablecloths and silverware that probably cost more than my rent. I'd been a waitress here for 2 years, and most nights blended into one long stretch of serving bougie customers their overpriced scallops. Tonight, though, was different. Tonight, Mrs. Sterling was in. Mrs. Sterling was a legend, even amongst the high rollers who frequented our establishment. Filthy rich, known for her philanthropy and her sharp, no-nonsense demeanor. She always sat at the same corner table, ordered the same sparkling water with a twist of lemon, and usually left a ridiculously generous tip. But she never really saw you, not beyond the uniform anyway. We were just part of the furniture, there to facilitate her luxurious dining experience. I was clearing the appetizer plates from table 7, trying to balance a stack of ceramics while dodging a particularly boisterous group of businessmen, when I felt a hand on my arm. It wasn't a gentle tap, it was a firm, almost urgent grip. I flinched, nearly dropping the plates, and turned to see Mrs. Sterling. Her eyes, usually cool and appraising, were wide, almost frantic. "Excuse me, ma'am," I said, my voice a little shaky. "Is everything all right?" She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze was fixed on my left forearm, just below the sleeve of my uniform. I followed her line of sight and saw what she was staring at, the small, irregular birthmark I'd had my entire life. It was a reddish-brown patch, shaped vaguely like a misshapen star, nestled right there on my skin. I usually didn't think twice about it, certainly not in a crowded restaurant. "This birthmark," she said, her voice surprisingly soft, almost a whisper, "it runs in our family." My mind reeled. Our family? What was she talking about? I was an orphan, raised in a series of foster homes, with no known relatives beyond vague, half-remembered stories from social workers. The idea of having a family, let alone one connected to Mrs. Sterling, was so ludicrous it almost made me laugh. But the look on her face wasn't humorous. It was raw, vulnerable, a look I'd never seen on her before. I don't understand, ma'am," I stammered, trying to pull my arm away gently, but her grip tightened. "No, don't move," she commanded, her voice regaining a bit of its usual authority, but laced with an undeniable tremor. "My daughter. She had one just like it. Exactly like it. The same shape, the same place." My heart started to pound. My foster parents had always told me my birth mother had passed away when I was very young. I had a few faded photos, but no real memories. The thought that there might be more to my story, that this incredibly wealthy woman was somehow connected, was overwhelming. "You're mistaken," I said, trying to sound firm, but my voice betrayed me. "I don't have any family." "You do," she insisted, her gaze still fixed on my arm as if trying to memorize every curve of the birthmark. "My daughter, Sarah. She disappeared almost 30 years ago. Just vanished. We never stopped looking. We never gave up hope." Her eyes, I noticed for the first time, were the exact same shade of blue as mine. A jolt went through me, a strange, undeniable spark of recognition. A small crowd was starting to gather, other diners pausing their conversations to watch the unusual scene. My manager, Mr. Henderson, was heading our way, a look of concern on his face. This was not good for business. "Mrs. Sterling, is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice smooth but firm, clearly trying to diffuse the situation. She finally released my arm, but her eyes never left my face. "No problem, Mr. Henderson," she said, her voice regaining its usual steeliness. "Just a family matter. Come with me, child." She stood up, her movements surprisingly agile for a woman her age, and gestured towards an empty private dining room. I hesitated, looking at Mr. Henderson. He gave me a subtle nod, a silent instruction to follow. After all, Mrs. Sterling was a very important customer. Inside the private room, the air felt thick with unspoken questions. She sat down, gesturing for me to do the same. I perched nervously on the edge of a plush chair. "My daughter Sarah," she began, her voice softer now, almost wistful. "She was a free spirit. Got involved with a young man we didn't approve of. They ran off together. We heard rumors that she'd had a baby. A girl. But then all traces vanished." She paused, her eyes filling with tears that she quickly blinked away. "My husband and I spent millions, hired the best detectives. Nothing. Just a cold trail." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and I felt a connection, a strange pull that went beyond words. "Show me your birthmark again, child," she requested. I rolled up my sleeve. She leaned forward, her hand trembling slightly as she traced the outline of the mark with her finger. "It's her," she whispered, her voice cracking. "It's exactly like hers. And your eyes. You have her eyes." Tears pricked at my own eyes. All my life, I'd felt like a puzzle with missing pieces. Now, here was this woman, a complete stranger, offering me a whole new picture. It was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. "My name is Lily," I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. "Lily," she repeated, a new warmth in her tone. "It's a beautiful name. Sarah loved lilies." She reached out, and this time her touch was gentle, almost reverent, as she cupped my face in her hands. "You're my granddaughter, aren't you?" The question hung in the air, a lifetime of longing and unanswered prayers in her voice. I didn't know what to say, what to feel. It was too much, too fast. But as I looked into her tear-filled blue eyes, eyes that were so much like my own, a profound sense of belonging, a feeling I'd never experienced before, washed over me. It was like a piece of my soul I didn't even know was missing had finally slotted into place. I choked back a sob. I think so," I whispered, and then, without thinking, I leaned forward and hugged her, a woman I'd known only as a distant, formidable billionaire, but who now felt like the closest thing to family I had ever known. And in that embrace, amidst the clinking of glasses and the distant hum of conversation, a lifetime of loneliness began to melt away. "We have so much to talk about," she said, her voice thick with emotion as we pulled apart. "So many years to catch up on." I nodded, still processing the surreal reality of the situation. The restaurant, my job, the expensive food, it all faded into the background. All that mattered was this woman, this grandmother I never knew I had, and the promise of a future I never dared to dream of. That night, I didn't serve a single scallop. Instead, I sat with Mrs. Sterling, or rather, my grandmother, until the restaurant closed, listening to her stories of Sarah, of my mother, and slowly, painstakingly, beginning to piece together the shattered fragments of my own history. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen, truly connected, and truly, wonderfully found.